Good morning. And yes, I thought I'd bring my Lord Ganesha with me this morning. Uh, Remover of obstacles and all sorts of other things. Anyway, he's joining me this morning for no apparent reason other than I just think he's so cute. I just love him. And boy, do I need obstacles removed. I think we all need obstacles removed. Help. Help. Okay. Anyway, it is March. Okay. March is fast running out. There's two things that, besides the beginning of the holy days of Thelema, that March sort of is a landmark month. Back in 415 AD, we don't know the exact date. It's just most biographers just say March 415 AD. Hypatia of Alexandria was assassinated. And I guess Cyril, the Bishop of Alexandria, thought she was an obstacle that needed to be removed. No offense. Actually, from a cold-blooded political point of view, there were a couple of warring Christian. Okay, now the Christian movement in 415 was a pretty strange thing. Okay, it was pretty early on, and they were just trying to figure out what Christianity was about, and there was bitter feuds, violent feuds between people arguing over the status of the soul of Adam and shit like that. But there were two warring Christian factions in the city of Alexandria, which was a very cosmopolitan town with great libraries and art centers and things like that. It was a hot town, and people from all over the world came to study there and use the library. Carl Sagan said, had not the Library of Alexandria been burned, that the technology that put humans on the moon in the late 20th century would have happened in the 15th century. That's what a setback that was in world thought. So you can imagine what a blink of an eye can do in a society to just fuck things up for the next couple thousand years. Okay. But I digress. There are two warring factions or competing political factions, and both of them were Christian. And there was Orestes, and there was Cyril, the Bishop of Rome. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody threw a rock at Orestes during one of his talks or his town halls. They threw a rock at him. And then one of somebody threw a rock at somebody, and then somebody's follower had them arrested, tortured, and killed. and that was Erastes. Okay, he was a Christian. And in revenge for that, Cyril wanted to get at Erastes. And one of Erastes' supporters, local supporters in the intelligentsia community, was Hypatia of Alexandria. So there was philosophical and religious differences for sure, and reasons that Cyril saw her as an obstacle that needed to be removed, and not all of them philosophical, okay? There was political reasons for the assassination also. But way back in 1996, I wrote a little thing called Devil Be My God, and I've shared it with you before in other contexts here on my morning shows. And but it's really short, just a couple minutes actually, and I've included it as chapter 6 in Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium. Okay. Now, I know a lot of you have a lot of my books, but not very many of you have this one, and it's still in print by the good folks at Weiser. I'm very proud of it. And here's how I started out. I started off with two epigraphs. One was a quote from Robin Hood, the Errol Flynn movie. "I advise you to curb that wagging tongue of yours," said the Bishop of Black Cannons. "It's a habit I've never formed, your grace," answered Robin Hood. In AD 415, in March, Cyril, the Bishop of Alexandria, Egypt, found himself in a most awkward position. Not only was he burdened with the task of concocting viable doctrines from the muddled and conflicting traditions of the young Christian cult, he was required to do so in the most sophisticated and enlightened pagan city on earth. Now, his contribution to concocting traditions for the Christian church, including he more or less invented and put forward and pressed the concept of the Holy Trinity. Okay, which it's a perfect fine concept from a Kabbalistic point of view, I'm sure, and but until Cyril, that seemed like a very non-Jewish thing. God is one, and Jesus was a Jew, and Christianity was a Jewish cult, and all of a sudden, oh no, we worship three, and it was revolutionary and crazy. But Cyril was the driving force behind that. But I digress. Long before the alleged virgin birth of the crucified Savior, Alexandria, with her celebrated schools and library, nurtured the greatest minds of the Mediterranean world and Asia. Here religion and philosophy were lovers, and their union gave rise to a dynamic environment of dialogue and debate. On more than one occasion, Cyril tried to glean converts to Christianity from the student body of the Neoplatonic Academy, only to be struck dumb by the discomforting realization that the fledgling philosophers were far more knowledgeable than he about the subtleties and shortcomings, and there were many, of his own faith. Uncomfortable as such moments were, his grace bore them dutifully. I'm being sarcastic here, okay? They afforded him the opportunity to suffer for his faith. His patience came to an end, however, when his faith and reputation were challenged by the brilliant and charismatic luminary of the Alexandrian school of Neoplatonism, Hypatia, the greatest woman initiate of the ancient world. Hypatia of Alexandria was without question the most respected and influential thinker of her day. The daughter of the great mathematician Theon, she took over her father's own honored position at the academy and lectured there for many years. She, more than any other individual since Plotinus, the father of Neoplatonism, grasped the profound potential of that school of thought. Her lectures were wildly popular and attracted a stream of scholars who saw in Neoplatonism the possibility of a truly universal spiritual order, a supreme philosophy, an enlightened religion to unite all religions. Such was the golden promise of Neoplatonism, and Hypatia of Alexandria was its virgin prophetess. Troubled by the continued degeneration of the Christian movement, and it was crazy at that time, they didn't take baths and troubled by the continual degeneration of the Christian movement, its intolerance of other faiths, and its dangerous preoccupation with miracles and wonders, Hypatia began a series of public lectures dealing with the Christian cult. She revealed the pagan roots of the faith, which was easy to do in those days. She revealed the pagan roots of the faith and systematically unmasked the absurdities and superstitions that had infected the movement. Then, with power and eloquence surpassing that of any Christian apologist, she elucidated upon what she understood to be the true spiritual treasures found in the purported teachings of the Christ. Her arguments were so persuasive that many new converts to the cult renounced their conversions and became disciples of Hypatia. Her lectures stimulated enormous interest in Christianity, but not the Christianity that was presented by Cyril, the Bishop of Alexandria. Not blessed with the strength of character necessary to suffer a personal confrontation with Hypatia, Cyril embarked upon a campaign of personal vilification by preaching to his unwashed and fanatical flock, and I mean that literally, okay? Unwashed and fanatical flock, that Hypatia was a menace to the faith, a sorceress in league with the devil. These diatribes seemed to have little effect upon the sophisticated population of urban Alexandria, who were beginning to realize that Bishop Cyril's Christianity was a cult that didn't play well with other children. Deep in the Nitrian desert, however, Cyril's hateful words eventually reached the crude monastery of Peter the Reader. Years of preaching to the wind and converting scorpions had uniquely qualified Peter to be the cleansing sword of the Prince of Peace. And the thought of a devil-possessed woman attacking his Savior was more than this man of God could stomach. Mustering a ragtag collection of his fellow hermits, he marched to Alexandria, where he met with officials of the Caesarean church, who informed him that each afternoon the shameless Hypatia drove her own chariot. I mean, her uncle didn't have, her husband or uncle or brother. No, she drove her own chariot from the academy back to her home. Armed only with clubs, oyster shells, and the grace of God, Peter and his mob ambushed Hypatia in the street near the academy. Pulling her from her chariot, they dragged her to the Caesarean church, where they stripped her, beat her with clubs, and finally, because of an ongoing debate over the soul's eternal status if the corpse remained whole, they scraped the flesh from her bones with oyster shells. The scoops of flesh and the rest of her remains were carried away and burned. The reaction of the Alexandrian community was one of confusion and shock. They caved. The reaction of the Alexandrian community was one of confusion and shock, and the Neoplatonist school was dealt a blow from which it never recovered. Although he went to great lengths to distance himself from the incident, Cyril took full advantage of the situation and used the terror of the moment to further intimidate the city and establish that the will of the Christian God was to be resisted at one's own risk. The martyrdom of Hypatia was certainly not the first example of truth resisting evil and losing. But it did mark the beginning of a prolonged spiritual delirium tremor, from which Western civilization has never fully recovered. Even the bright souls who did not succumb to the universal madness were forced to blossom against the twisted projections of the collective nightmare. Spiritual growth is not impossible in such an environment. But where wisdom is perceived by the world to be ignorance, where love is considered sin, and all that is best in the human spirit is condemned and repressed, the road by which a seeker of enlightenment must travel takes many curious turns. On such a journey, one's companions are outlaws and rebels. Sacredness breeds in blasphemy. Truth falls from the lips of false prophets. Heaven is sought in hell, and God is the devil himself. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will